Bitter Symphony by Sean Putnam. Read by the author. Penelope had been coming to this library since she was just a kid. She'd even chosen to pursue a degree in library science in these very halls. She loved the books, the feel of pages beneath her fingers, the satisfying creak of their spines as they opened. Books contained stories, but also books were stories, their history written in dried coffee stains or notes penciled into the margins of a page. There was one book in particular which Nellie loved most, a rare first edition of Bitter Symphony, published in 1836. It was Nellie's favorite, perhaps because the female lead, doomed to die in childbirth in the book's closing chapter, was also named Penelope. Or perhaps because the male lead, a hard-working sailor-turned-gentleman named Lyman Cooper, had been her first crush. Nellie had memorized not only the story, with its devastating ending, she'd memorized the contours of the book's binding, the wrinkles worn into their aged leather. The tactile experience of holding that book nearly rivaled the story inside, and it had brought Nellie back to work at this library as surely as anything else. Now, Nellie stood before the heavy iron gate that opened onto the library's special collections section, clutching a golden key in her hand. Most of the staff had left for the night, but Nellie thought she'd heard someone moving around within. She lifted the key, hesitated a moment, then turned it and pushed the gate aside. She gripped the chain for the lights and pulled. A man sat there, a leather-bound volume open in his lap, chestnut hair hanging down over his shoulders. He looked up at Nellie as she stood with the pull chain still clutched in her hand. "Good evening," he said. Knowing she should slam the gate, cry for help, phone the police, Nellie did none of these things. She thought she knew this man, but she definitely knew the book. It was Bitter Symphony. With a sudden protective impulse, Nellie stepped forward and snatched it from the stranger's lap. He didn't resist, but their eyes met for a moment as she stood over him. His eyes were pale gray, the color of the sea reflecting an overcast sky. Nellie recognized that line, but she didn't know why it had popped into her head just then. Then she noticed the man's clothes, a buff-colored tunic with padded shoulders, dark trousers, and a silk cravat coiled around his neck, like he'd just wandered off the set of a production of Jane Eyre. "Who are you?" Nellie asked, as she set the book down on a cluttered desktop. "Do you like the ending?" the man asked. "What?" "It's dreadfully sad," he said, as he got to his feet. Nellie took a half step back as the tall stranger, she amended, rose to his full height. "It's tragic romance," Nellie said, catching herself before she fell once more into the deep pools of the man's eyes. "The tall, handsome stranger," she amended again. "Only because it's too long," the man said. "The trick is knowing where to stop." "How did you get in here?" Nellie asked. "The gate was locked." The man smiled. "I should think you'd be more concerned with how I got out." Nellie looked down at the book, then back at him. Her eyes goggled wide. "It's irregular, I admit," he continued, "but necessary, I assure you." "You can't be—" "Lyman Cooper," he bowed. "And you?" Penelope," she stammered. He smiled again. "A beautiful name." "How?" Nellie managed. "Well, I've said already, I don't like where my story ends. I've come to fix it." "You can't," Nellie said, that fierce protective urge rising in her again. "Why?" "It's not yours to change just because you don't like how it goes." "We all write our own stories, don't we?" he asked. "But you aren't real." He took a cautious step forward. "I'm here, aren't I? You see me, hear me. In this moment, I'm as real as you." Lyman took Nellie's hand in his own. His grip was warm, inviting. She felt the tip of his finger as it lightly brushed the inside of her wrist, and shuddered. He guided Nellie's hand up to his chest. "My heart beats. It bleeds. It's real. And so is my heartbreak." Nellie felt something else, too, sadness pouring off him like light from a dying star. "I can't do it alone," Lyman continued. "I've managed this much, but to actually alter the text, maybe it's because I am the text, but I can't change it. You, though, Nellie considered what he was asking. This was Bitter Symphony, not just her favorite story, but her favorite copy of the story. She'd carefully handled it dozens of times, hundreds. To see it defaced was something she didn't think she could bear. But if this was happening, really happening, well, she knew Lyman's story by heart. His lifetime of struggle, longing for a love that could never be his, yet never accepting it was beyond his reach. And after finally getting what he wanted, to have it all unceremoniously ripped away over a matter of a few pages? "Penelope," Lyman said, "please." That was all it took. Nellie looked into Lyman Cooper's eyes, and this time she fell right in. When Mrs. Carahart, the library's director, returned next morning, she found the iron gate standing open. At once she went inside, but found everything in Special Collections still in its proper place. Well, almost everything. One book, Bitter Symphony, sat on the desk. Mrs. Carahart could see something tucked into its pages. She picked it up and found a golden key sandwiched between the back cover and the final page. Immediately, she noticed several pages were missing, the whole last chapter, in fact. Ragged edges where the pages had been ripped from the binding peeked out from underneath the key. And there was something else. Written in Nellie's flowing handwriting were these words: "And they lived happily ever after."